Hello YouTube. So we're back here today with the Gamesir Tarantula Pro. So this is for my subscribers, fans, followers on YouTube. So one of my followers or subscribers or just a fan pretty much asked to do a gyro set testing with the Gamesir Tarantula Pro. So I have my mapping button mapped to my gyro switch on. So we're going back. So I have it on what I consider more of a linear input gyro mode. So as you can see, swaying back and forth, sway back and forth. You can see the pretty much it's a aim, a point and aim kind of input. So side to side, side to side, up, down, up, down. So swaying. So I would say this is more of a linear input. So here we go. And I would say this is in this mode I would consider it more of an aim assist than anything. So you do have that side to side movement when you're aiming. You do have that side to side movement, but when you're shooting, it does help if you're one of those guys that really clench your controllers and you do the point and aim and you're like trying to get there, but mostly you're using your joystick. So let's go back to the joystick settings. So if you're one of those guys that's like, go that way, go that way, go that way, pretty much using your controller as a point of reference, but mostly everybody uses the joysticks. So as you can see, I'm not really tracking. It's pretty touchy with the joysticks because these are TMR sticks. But as soon as I go to the gyro mode, it acts as a more of a aim assist than anything. So it does help a little bit, I would say. Just to get that fine aim. And it is very responsive, I would say. As soon as I move the controller, it's pretty much responsive. And again, this I would consider this mode because you have 3 modes with the gyro setting on the Connect app. So going to the Connect app, going to motions, and I would, like I said, this is more of a, so you have 3 settings, and I would say this is the second setting. I found out that this one is more of a vertical input. So it does have its side to side, but it's not as much as the first 2. It's more vertical than anything. It reads more of a vertical input. So like I said, so pointing the controller side to side, it doesn't have that input to the horizontal input. So I would say this is the first setting. It has all the arrows point and kind of like a 360 multiple angle input. So I would consider this to be more of a raw mode. So as you can see, it's so steady, side to side, side to side, up, down, and then you have your full range of motion. So as soon as you tilt the controller to a certain direction, like I said, this is more raw input because it's very responsive. Slightest movement, up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side. So I would and then pretty much twirl around. more of a, so that's actually more, pretty much reaches all the raw input. And I do have my, and it does go off the joystick input. So if you go back to the joysticks, and when you put the initial dead zone all the way to 0, so you get this pretty much a sporadic movement. So if we go to 0, so there you go, it has more of a sporadic movement than anything. And when you're doing your gamepad LA circular dead zone input, and I'll show you there, I'll show you in just a minute, but put it to 5, it puts it into a default where the numbers are consistently 0. So let's go back to that. So again, so if you put this to a 0 setting, you have sporadic. So as soon as you move the controller, or actually that's more 0 0 input, but when you go to the gamepad LA, so there you go, the axis kind of sticks to this certain dead zone in a negative. So I guess you could say that's more of a true dead zone than anything. But going back to default, when you open up the gyro settings, it's pretty much set to 5, and we go to circular mode, both sides circular mode, and both joysticks are set to 5. So again, it's based on your joystick input. Again, so this I would like to call the raw gyro mode than anything. And then you have your linear mode, which is just the 2 arrows circling the controller. So I would say that's more, it's not as sporadic as the first one. It's more controlled. So I call this more of the linear mode. So going back to the game. So as you can see, this is more of the linear mode. And again, I feel like this has more of an aim assist feel to the controller when you're doing gyro mode.
Fusey's ready for an upgrade.
So let's go back to, and again I have mine's mapped to the map button for the on and off switch, so that's the off mode. And going back to the Connect app, again, so I call this the linear mode, and then this is the vertical mode than anything. So turning on the vertical mode, so that's more vertical than anything. It does reach its side to side, but it's very minimal. And I call this vertical mode. Let's call it vertical mode. Going back to the game, so as you can see, it's more of up and down input, and it reads more up and down input than anything. Side to side, it has its little
Fusey's ready for an upgrade.
So it does have its little side to side, but it's not very much. It's more controlled than anything. So it does help as a game assist if you're trying to, when you're controlling that recoil. So this is, and then you can point your controller down to help with helping the recoil. So I turned it off. And this is all joystick input. So those are the 3 modes that I have on this Gamesir Tarantula Pro. So let's go back to the Connect app, showing you what mode that I usually put it in is in this. So this is, again, this has the more of a 360 feel, raw input mode. Going to the second setting, it has more of a linear mode, which is it's more controllable than anything. It doesn't have its sporadic movements as you see on the joystick. So So this is the, I would say this is the linear mode, has more control. And again, you have your vertical mode, more vertical than anything. And then you have your raw mode, which is pretty much taking all inputs of the controller, of where you point it, where you move it. But I do like the linear mode, which is this one, which is just the two arrows around the controller. And then this one's going pretty much around the controller. So the first setting or the last setting goes around, so it's more the vertical input. This one I call the raw input. It's pretty much sporadic movements, and this is more controlled, more refined movements on the gyro setting, so I call this the linear mode. So, and like I said, I have mine's more of on the linear mode to have help with me with those fine movements. And again, acts as an aim assist more than anything on the second setting. With the help of your joysticks, you can get that, pretty much nail your target. And again, that's the linear mode. So it takes the inputs more refined than anything. And there you have it with the gyro mode that I usually have it on, the settings that I usually play with. If you're gonna use the gyro mode with the controller. So let's log out of this real quick. I'll be back. And just to show you that I've been hearing some weird testing with the Gamesir Connect app, and trying to get their controllers to pull 1,000 hertz pulling rate. I've had no issues with my controller. So right now it's the Gamesir in dongle mode. So we're going to test this controller to show you that my controller is pulling 1,000 hertz. And left stick, enter. And right now it's in dongle mode. And we're going to do this right now. So right now it's pulling 914 with a 91% stability. Minimum 0.95, maximum 2.51. Jitters pretty much very low, 0.24. So let's go to X input, and we'll do the 1,000 samples. So here we go. So we got three outliers, a 9.96, 3.76, and a 2.94, pulling at 1,094. Minimum jitter, very low, 0.11. Maximum, this is pretty much the measuring the outliers, and its lowest value and the X input, which the minimum is 0.61. So we're going to do this one more time with, let's see, again. So, okay, so good. So we got a 0 outlier pulling at 1,103 with a very low jitter, lower than the previous input test, 0.03. Maximum is very low at 1.26, which is the X input. One of these numbers is this right here, this maximum input. And again, it's pretty much consistent with the first trial with a, let's drag this over here, with a 0.52 input. I would say that's very on my, like I said, on my controller it's pulling 1,000 hertz. Other people I've heard that they're only pulling maybe 500 or 250, and they're wondering why their controller isn't pulling 1,000 hertz. But on my end, it is possible to get these controllers to 1,000 hertz with the dongle. So let's try that in cable mode. So right now I do have the cable connected to the controller to my PC, and let's see if so I know that this in wire mode, if it pulled 1,000 hertz in wireless mode using the dongle, I should have no issues with the wire. Let's see if it's more consistent than anything. So let's do the X input test again. So I guess we have, so that's got one major outlier at 13.99 and a 7.96, just two outliers, with a jitter of 0.09, pulling at 1084. So we're going to run this one more time. So let's do this. Click a different 2000 sample. Let's go back to the 1000, and here we go. So wire mode. Okay, so good. So now this one is reading a 0 outlier input. Jitter is very low again, 0.08. Maximum is 2.10. Minimum is a 0.55. So, and pulling at 1089. So in wire mode, you do have your little nicks here and there. I would say that's more user error. If you're using the X input, make sure you're going on the outer ring of the friction ring with your joysticks. Make it more, be a consistent joystick input test using that method. Try to just be more consistent when you're doing the circle, just to give it the outliers or the inputs on the app. Let's see if we can, let's do that one more time. So that one was a zero with 0 outliers again. So let's try, let's do that one more time again. So right now in wire mode, we're pulling 1096 with 0 outliers. Maximum is 1.32. I believe that's lower than the first one that we just did a few seconds ago. With a minimum, yeah, pretty much it's lower than the first value that we just did earlier. With a minimum 0.54. The other one was a 55, I believe. So average is a 0.91. So I have no issues using wire or dongle mode. But if you're gonna use the gyro, so it's more an inconvenience to have this wire connected to your controller. If you're doing gyro mode, it does have its limitations being in wire. So that's why that's why they created the dongle version for this controller. And again, showing you the numbers earlier with the dongle, I did have 0 outlier on my dongle, pulling 1000 hertz test. So there you have it. Let's see. This video is pretty much already long. I wanted to I'll just show you. I'm gonna plug in my Vader 4 Pro and see if it's any different. So here's my Vader 4 Pro. Does have the grips on this controller by Talon Gaming's. You can purchase it on Amazon. So we're gonna do the X input test, the 1000 hertz test. So here we go. So that's got 2 outliers. So 24.06. Minimum at 0.51. Pulling 1089 or 1089 hertz. So let's do that one more time. Okay, so now we got 0 outliers, pulling 1095 with a minimum jitter of 0.14. Minimum input is 0.54, so there's a 0.54 in these numbers here, and that's the minimum. And the maximum, one of these, so as you can see, we got 1.00, 1.02, 1.06, and the maximum outlier, and it did not register on the outliers because it's pretty much doing what it's supposed to do. If there was anything above that, it would actually put that in the max input. But there you have it. It's pulling 1000 hertz, 1095 with 0 outliers and a minimum jitter. Averages is at 0.91. So I'll show you the gyro mode on the Vader 4 Pro. And here we have the Flydigi space station app. I do have my gyro mapped to my C button, which is right here. I usually have my sensitivity using the Vader 4 Pro at 25, and joystick dead zone compensation 15. We can put that at 0 and see what that does. Actually, let's put that at 5 so that we don't get sporadic inputs on the controller. So let's pull up the game one more time. Okay, so again, here we have the Vader 4 Pro on the Apex Legends. So right now, like I said, I had my gyro button as the power button for powering on the gyro mode. So here we go. I would say the Vader 4 Pro is very, very, very sensitive to the input tests. So using this controller has a more of a, it's as soon as you move the controller, it takes that input. So it's very sporadic, very sensitive. I would say compared to the Gamesir Tarantula Pro, the Gamesir Tarantula Pro has a more refined, smooth input. As you can see, it's I'm literally shaking the controller and it's taking that input onto the screen. As you can see, I'm barely even shaking this controller. So the gyro setting on this is very sensitive on the Vader 4 Pro. So let's go back to the Space Station app, and let's put the sensitivity to about 70. Oh, let's actually go lower. Let's put that to 5% sensitivity and see if that gives us a more refined input. So that's that's weird. So as you can see, okay, so 5 is a little bit more better. It feels more like the Tarantula Pro. So this is the 5% setting on the Vader 4 Pro. So to me, this actually feels more like the Tarantula Pro. It's not as sporadic, and it's more refined. And I do have so actually that's more, I don't know. I would say it's more gamer preference than anything. The Tarantula Pro actually has more, it's more steady. There's many reviews about the Vader 4 Pro on the joystick tests. What they say, this has more of a, trying to find the words, sorry. The inputs on this is actually more sensitive. So as I'm jittering the controller, and it's literally reading the inputs.
Reckon I ought to grab an upgrade.
So, the Vader 4 Pro compared to the Tarantula Pro, I would say the Tarantula Pro is more of a smoother gyro setting. Even on the raw input, I would say the raw input is very comparable to this. So let's go back to the Flydigi Space Station app. Let's put the sensitivity to 0 and see if that does anything more. Okay, so right now, so it's very limited. Very limited. Let's actually bump those numbers back up. So I'm gonna turn off. Again, I have my C button mapped to my gyro on and off. So there you go. Let's go back to the Space Station app. And let's actually bump this up to about 2% sensitivity to see what that looks like. So there you go. So I would say that's more linear, and it does have that. So it's just barely even jiggling the controller reads the inputs. So again, I would say the 2 to start off is a good setting for the Vader 4 Pro.
Let's grab an upgrade,
It's not as sporadic. It's not as jittery as you go up in the sensitivity. I mean, this pretty much reads every single movement. I'm barely even moving the controller, and it's reading those inputs clearly. No stutters, no sputters on the controller. And that's gonna be pretty much user error, because if you have shaky hands and you're in gyro setting, that's what it's gonna look like when you're trying to use your gyro settings. I mean, that would actually helps kind of a little bit as an aim assist. So I'm just learning about this whole gyro settings with these controllers. I don't really use the gyro settings on the Vader 4 Pro. I'm mostly stick with the Vader 4 Pro, but doing this test and seeing the results is pretty interesting. The movement and the inputs from the inputs from the Vader 4 Pro are more consistent, because you have that those very fine movements using the Vader 4 Pro, as it's very different from the Tarantula Pro. And I'll do that one more time with the Tarantula Pro. And there you have it with the Vader 4 Pro's gyro settings and the sensitivity range. So let's pause that. Do one more test. Let's jump this up to 25. Let's see what that looks like. So it's more fast, more speedy.
Got me another level. Time for an
And
upgrade.
as soon as you're moving, it's taking those inputs clearly from the controller to the game. Very sporadic movements, very more quick. So there you have it, the Vader 4 Pro at 25% setting. Again, it's all user preference when you're using the gyro mode settings between each app. And I'll do the Tarantula Pro. So this is 25%, and it feels like the raw mode on the Tarantula Pro. So let's pause that, turn off the gyro mode. So again, I have my C button mapped to so that's off, and then pressing the C button pretty much turns on your gyro. Yeah, just press the C button, and there you have it for the Vader 4 Pro gyro settings. It's all user preference. You can change whatever you can use or change whatever you like.
Alright.
So let's go back to the Tarantula Pro. So again, we're back here with the Tarantula Pro. This is the joystick, and these are TMR sticks. They're very accurate. I mean, these take the inputs pretty smoothly. But let's turn on the gyro settings. So again, I have mine's mapped to the map button.
Ready for an upgrade.
As you can see, let's see if it takes the input. Okay, so it's reading the inputs pretty much clearly. Sometimes I do have a shaky hand, but it's not as clear, it's not as responsive as the Vader 4 Pro, but it does the job when you're using the gyro mode. Let's actually turn off the gyro, go back to settings, turn off vibration. and then turn on the gyro mode again.
Best grab an upgrade.
It's reading it. It's not as clear as the. It takes more movement. Let's actually go to the raw setting mode for the on the Connect app. So as we're pulling up the Connect app, again, I call this the linear mode, as you can see right there. Let's go to the raw mode. So it has all arrows circling the controller side to side, horizontal. So it's got its vertical and horizontal inputs, but I would call this the raw input mode again. And let's see if it reads and registers more clearly on the controller side using this portion of the controller. Yeah, I would say the raw mode feels like the Vader 4 Pro, but it's not as responsive. So it's, and there you have it. Showed you the gyro settings, what I use preferentially. I'm still figuring out this whole gyroscoping on Apex Legends. It's a new thing for me. Again, you have your side to side, front to back, and this is the raw mode. So it's not as clear as the Vader 4 Pro. I'll give the Vader 4 Pro the gyro settings as a win over the Tarantula 4 Pro. But again, it's not as bad. It reads the inputs like it should. Up and down, side to side. And again, you can map these buttons. But I have this set for Apex Legends, and I have all these top buttons, including this as these are all map keyboard inputs as you're playing the game. So using this whole map layout, I have these. So as you can see, even using the gyro, you can clearly scroll down the menu. I would say it's doing its job as a controller. So I turned off the gyro mode, hitting the map button. So as you can see, it's not scrolling through the menu. So let's do that one more time. And there you have it, the gyro mode for the Gamesir Tarantula Pro. So I showed you both the controllers that I switch between the Vader 4 Pro and the Tarantula Pro. I usually use the joysticks. These are TMR sticks on the Tarantula Pro. I usually use the sticks when I'm playing Apex Legends. Again, I'm very new to this whole gyroscoping, but I wanted to show one of my viewers the gyro capabilities on the Tarantula Pro versus the Vader 4 Pro. So both these controllers do have gyro settings. I would say this is more responsive and more clear inputs. As soon as you're jittering the controller, it's reading it on, as you saw on the screen, it was reading every single movement on the controller, which as a Tarantula Pro, I would say this is a little bit more slower inputs, registering from the game. From the controller to the game, it's registering. It has more of a smoother input. Let's put it that it has more of a smoother input. It feels not as responsive as the Vader 4 Pro, because the Vader 4 Pro has a very responsive response curve. I would say that it has a more responsive curve. reading input, because as soon as you're moving this controller, it's reading it and it's registering on the game. As you saw earlier in the video, comparing to the Tarantula Pro, it does have, this one has more of a smoother input. It's not as jittery. It's not reading every single motion of the controller. I'm not saying it does this, but it doesn't for me. So there you have it. The Tarantula Pro and the Vader 4 Pro. And again, I would say this is more personal preference, whichever one you want. The capabilities of the Vader 4 Pro, I would say the Vader 4 Pro has more of a win because it has four remappable back buttons, and the Tarantula Pro only has 2 back buttons. But this, I have not found a way to put keyboard inputs on my Vader 4 Pro yet. I'm not sure if there's going to be a software, but I'm going to have to recheck and relook at the Space Station app. Yeah, so it's not connected. I don't have the dongle, and I was using the dongle doing during the gyro testings, as you saw on the screen. And there you have it. The Tarantula Pro gyro settings, testing on Apex Legends. So it's all up to you, whichever one you want. But if you're looking for a bit more accurate gyro input, the Vader 4 Pro takes the win over the Tarantula Pro. I'm sure in this there'll be more software updates for the Gamesir Tarantula Pro. Hopefully down the road they do have more of a more clear, steady input on the Tarantula Pro. The Vader 4 Pro has a lot going for it, I would say. And there you have it, both my controllers that I use and testing out the gyro settings. Like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Hopefully this answers some of your questions and some of the choices that you want to pick. So, thank you.